Well, the Iranians have issued an ultimatum to the Europeans. I think they call themselves the P5+1. You know, they come up with these stupid diplomatic acronyms, like the G20. And so Iran has made it clear to these folks that now that the U.S. has pulled out of the Iran deal, and the U.S. really was the guarantor of it, they were the ones that mattered since the U.S. is the world empire. Iran says, hey, Europe, you've got 60 days to try and patch things up with us, or we're pretty much gonna ignore the deal too. We don't really want the deal if the U.S. isn't going to keep up their end of the bargain. We feel threatened by the U.S. We're gonna do whatever we want, nuclearly. Is that a word? And so to prove that they're serious, Iran is now going to gradually increase their enrichment levels of their uranium. They're already holding more in their stockpile than they're supposed to, and their uranium stockpile, from what I understand, it's not something that'll actually help them build a nuclear bomb. No matter how much uranium they have, if it's not at the correct enrichment level, if it's not sufficiently enriched, then they can't really use it to build a bomb. Now what they're doing, however, though, is they are increasing that enrichment level, and eventually, if they keep raising it and Europe, doesn't appease them, they're going to enrich uranium at levels at which they could build a nuclear weapon. And of course, the Europeans don't want this, not necessarily because they're afraid of getting nuked by Iran, but because they were hoping to engage in trade with Iran. They want to buy Iranian oil and other Iranian exports. And because unlike, say, Iraq or Syria, Iran is not yet a basket case. They still do produce things like a normal country, and there are things that people outside of Iran may want to buy from Iranians, and there are things that people from outside of Iran may want to sell to Iranians. And so now that Iran is gradually increasing their enrichment levels, you'll want to watch for when the enrichment crosses the 20% mark, because I believe that's where uranium is sufficiently enriched to where they could actually build a bomb. Now, the IAEA inspectors are in Iran, and they have been keeping a watchful eye on how much Iran is enriching, and they have reported now that Iran is at, I think, 4.5%, although Iran is targeting 5% now. That's their next level that they said they're going to hit, and then after that they're going to raise it again, and eventually they'll hit 20. Now, the way I see it, I don't think the Iranians really want a bomb. That's never seemed like that would be in their strategic interest. However, they are under this maximum pressure sanctions campaign. They seem to have their back against the wall, and they're kind of like a cornered animal. So this is kind of their biggest way in which they can lash out and strike, is they can actually threaten, to the world that, hey, don't come at us because we may or may not have a nuke by this point, because they essentially are playing their cards kind of close to the vest in one respect, and that is they're giving the impression that, hey, why would they be going up to this 20% enrichment level on uranium when they know that that will draw in an attack from the outside, from the West, from the U.S. and Israel? If they know that going to that 20% level will provoke them to act, why would they do it unless they thought that they could actually get something out of that 20% enriched uranium, if they thought they actually could take it and very quickly turn it into a weapon? Now, I think that in this case, Iran is kind of bluffing. I don't think that if they get to a 20% enrichment level that they actually can quickly turn that into a bomb in time to sort of defend themselves from the impending attack. I really see this more as a last-ditch effort on their part. And I don't think it's going to work. I really think that Iran is out of options. It's pretty clear that the U.S. is being pretty hostile towards it, and that Iran is not going to get out of this unscathed, because just as the U.S. has always maintained throughout its history, when it has an enemy, it's not looking to make deals. They're looking for unconditional surrender. And unless the Iranians offer unconditional surrender, they will be eventually pushed to the brink of destruction. When the U.S. really wants to take you down, that's just how it goes. That's how it worked for Mexico and Japan and plenty of other countries. Now, I'm expecting at 20% we're going to see some kind of response, probably from Israel to begin with, because the Netanyahu has, of course, been absolutely batty over Iran's nuclear program since, well, I guess the 90s. And so he likely will be the first one to speak publicly about this and essentially encourage the U.S. to act more directly and, say, actually bomb Iran's nuclear sites. I wouldn't be surprised if Israel themselves goes and bombs Iran's nuclear sites with or without telling the U.S. They probably will coordinate with the national security state in the U.S., but perhaps President Trump will not be informed. And that, I think, will be the start of a new set of escalating tension. Once the U.S. or Israel strike at Iran, I think then you will see Iran trying to strike back in some other way, and then that will further escalate the situation, and we probably will end up getting into a war if all that plays out as one would expect. That's sort of the chain of most likely events. If you follow the most likely event at each stage in sort of a game theory fashion, I think you kind of hit war. However, if the less likely event, saying in the case in which one of the sides decides to de-escalate at any stage of that escalation process, well, then there will not be a war. So we have plenty of opportunities to avoid war, I think, in the future. However, there is a strong likelihood that if everyone acts sort of based on their gut instinct, that will end up in a war in pretty short order. So again, those are the two. I assume that the 60-day expiration date set by the Iranians will probably coincide with them reaching 20% enrichment levels. So it looks like we've got a couple of months here of stasis in the Iran situation. You'll probably see escalating rhetoric, certainly on the part of the U.S. and Israel. Bolton and Pompeo spoke at Christians United for Israel this week, and they alluded to the crowd there, which is, of course, very pro-Israel and anti-Iran, that they're not finished with Iran yet, and that Iran's not going to get away with whatever devious deeds they think they're planning. So, of course, that may just be red meat for supporters, but it's something to keep an eye on. So I will continue to do so, and if you gained anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and subscribing. And if you do subscribe, please do click the bell, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.